I was really inspired. I know Danny was here for the last session. I don't know, Lynn or Kim, if you were as well. But I was really inspired by the conversation around just that notion of being free to dream and how freedom can sometimes feel like a privilege, and how sometimes access to certain things, especially around pathways, and even more specifically around IT pathways, can also feel like a privilege. As they were talking, it really reminded me, I was in Dallas recently, and I went to Paul Quinn College. I don't know if any of you all had the privilege of hearing Michael Sorrell speak while he was here, or even any other time. But I was so impressed by the young people that were leading our tours. They didn't just say their name. Everyone who introduced themselves, they said, for example, my name is Shawnee Caruthers, and my dream is this. And they just so openly named it. And it was the first time that I had seen young people just be so just like out in terms of like just naming the thing that matters to them. And they said that working with the president, Michael Sorrell, that he had really worked with them to do that, because they said that the more they named their dream, the closer it came to becoming a reality. And so it became their responsibility to speak it at every opportunity. And so as we think about this conversation we're going to have today around new tech pathways and the expanding role of intermediaries, you all play a huge role in helping students create that reality for themselves. We truly stand on the threshold of all of these technology changes. We have been in this space, and if you went to the air show over the weekend around AI, you all know that like technology is shifting literally every second. We'll probably walk out of here and there'll be a whole new system or something invented, or at least Danny will do it while we're sitting on the stage or something. But the world of work continues to evolve. And we have to ensure that our students are ready for it, that they have universal access to get to it, that they understand who they need to know in order to truly achieve it. There's so many levels, and it's our role, not just in the schools, but in workforce and industry as well, to make sure, like, how do we make those dreams a reality? And so as we think about your intermediary organizations, how they play truly a critical function, you all have to be program designers sometimes. Sometimes you have to help be relationship brokers. Sometimes you have to be system creators. I mean, sometimes you just have to just like break through all of the barriers, and there are plenty. So I want to go ahead and just like dive into this conversation. And I'm going to go to each of you first and have you introduce yourself, tell a little bit about your program, and talk about just this notion of what do you feel like is your role as an intermediary in this new tech space? And Lynn, I'll start with you. Lynn Moody from SparkNC.
Great. It's great. Am I on? Okay. It's great to be with you today. SparkNC is a new initiative, and I hesitate to say that word after the last session, right? Like, because we were told not to say that. We launched in July of this year in 17 school districts in North Carolina. Our dream was to create an engaging learning environment that was industry relevant in the high-tech career fields. So we wrote our proposal the day that Apple announced that they were coming to North Carolina and to the General Assembly. How would we have talent-ready workforce? So our students, the day that they made that announcement, social media went crazy with none of the North Carolinians will get these jobs. People from California will come to Apple in North Carolina and take all of these jobs. And we thought we have this diverse, wonderful talent pipeline. How do we develop it? So that was our mission and goal. So that's where we started.
Thank you. And we would have never guessed you were from North Carolina. Kim, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I think that's not going to work. Is it on? Can you hear me? Hi, y'all. I'm Kim Mahan with MAXX Potential, and we are a technology apprenticeship program, and we also have a unique virtual internship program that we offer to high school students. We've been at this. We're 12 years young and still learning. Founded MAXX because I once was a community college kid who fell off the tracks. I grew up in DC and got back on through the community college system and worked my way through University of Maryland online as a single mom, 3 kids. And guess what? Once I got that bachelor's, I got that first job at General Electric that changed my life. But it wasn't the degree. The degree, they never would have interviewed me if I didn't have the degree, but it was a portfolio of websites I taught myself to build that got me the job. And so founding MAXX was 20 years later. I traveled the world with GE. Go peep my LinkedIn and you'll see the professional side of me, but you need to hear a little bit of the backstory. Starting MAXX was all about giving that opportunity to other people. And from the beginning, we were blown away because half of the people showing up already had degrees. So we got people showing up for a $15 an hour apprenticeship program that have already paid for the degree. And they're looking for a way to break into IT. So I'm looking forward to sharing what we've learned over the past 12 years. Very passionate about this space. And I think what's different about us as an intermediary is like we're not managing paperwork or matching people. We actually write paychecks and provide health insurance to all of our apprenticeships.
Thank you, Kim. And then before you jump in, Kim, you made in your introduction, it was just such a good reminder because sometimes as adults, we also forget that we went on a whole journey, that we also had a whole pathway. And so by the way you just articulated that in your journey of teaching yourself in community college, you are our children. And so it's just really important to remember that we've also gone through many, many pathways.
And now I have them, and grandbabies too.
Thank you. Danny.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for just being a part of this experience right now. Our goal is to be able to share as much information as we possibly can, and I'm going to share it from the realm of like gaming and esports. If you don't know, gaming and esports is competitive gaming. Gaming is companies that are created these games like Fortnite, Rocket League, Minecraft. For our organization at ESPOSURE, we provide experiential opportunities for students within that actual industry. For an example, we have an 8,000 square foot esports studio and education center where schools, about 19 districts across Dallas as well as Texas, that come there, do field trips where we get to expose students to not only just plan the game, but the development of the game, but also work in the actual event, from the animation and the graphic designing, from the event coordination, so therefore they can see themselves in those particular careers outside of just, hey, Ma, I just want to play game and I want to be like Ninja, or I want to be like Kai Sinet. So for us, we were opening the eyes of the actual students, like the last panel stated, in regards to being able to show them that there's much more about the gaming industry, and there's a lot of people working in the gaming industry that they can get exposed to. So for us, it's all about the mission of engaging with students in regards to the things that they are passionately like. I always tell individuals, you don't have to force no one to play a game. Typically, parents are trying to get their students off the game. For us, it's a really good opportunity to showcase that there are skills that you're doing while you're playing games, like communication and strategy, that is very critical to the workspace in which we see today.
So, Danny, when you say they want to be like Kai Sinet, you don't mean like mentioning the Drake diss track?
No.
Okay. All right. We'll talk about that. You mean in a different way. Gaming. Got it. And you're doing something small in Austin. What are you doing?
Yeah, so we're right now building out the first esports dedicated school where the students actively go there from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock p.m. and they're working through their cores over 2 hours leveraging AI technology, and the rest of the actual hours we're building projects where the students actively learn how to build games in Fortnite. Working with partners like Fortnite, Epic Games, it gives them an opportunity to showcase that of gaming development. These games that are being developed, they want the students to build the worlds in Fortnite. Students right now can build a world in Fortnite and get paid based off of their friends being able to play in that actual map. So talking to the students that they have the opportunity to be an entrepreneur by creating that world in Fortnite is what we're passionate about doing at our school.
All right, thank you. So many critical skills that students are learning by doing that. Lynn, I want you to talk about the challenges of creating different programs and with universal access. Like, how do you begin to overcome those challenges? Or first, what are the challenges of creating the programs in terms of like ensuring access to workforce opportunities or blended learning?
Yeah, when we created our program, it was in our heart and our mind was on students who were disengaged in the learning process. And when I think about, I keep reflecting back on the last panel and listening to them, and I think about children, particularly of poverty. They have lack of access to information, how to figure things out, and they have lack of access to networks. I often tell my oldest son, had he been a child of poverty, he would be in jail today, but he's not. Like, he has a great career because he had information and a network to leverage all of that. So we wanted to give that to all students. And we wanted students to see themselves in these careers. We also, one of our 8 high-tech fields is game design. And it's almost a trick for us because kids love that and they know what it is. So some of our students come into our Spark Lab because of game design, but they leave in data analytics or cybersecurity or artificial intelligence. And we really don't care which one of those pathways that they choose, or they actually will choose to be just tech infused. We have one young lady who's taking units in our lab, and she wants to be a lawyer, and she wants to do ethics. And so she wants to learn everything she can about the IT industry to be able to accelerate her career in that. So the challenges are, we wanted to create a lab that students had access to with a lab leader who really cared about their development and coached and mentored them along the way. And we took away all the risk of failure. So we're competency-based. Students take our units as they choose to on their own pace, their own time. If they take 3 units and they're done, that's great. If they take all to a capstone, then they get a high school credit in computer science. So we wanted to take away the risk, because often students who don't see themselves in this role. I'll give you one great example. When we took some students on a tour this summer, and one young man said to me, can you please let me get on the tour to Apple, because I want to go to Apple. And I said, no, you're on he said, I don't want to go to that SAS place. It's like, well, you kind of need to go to the SAS place. He went, SAS Institute in Cary, and the scientist is talking about how he crowdsourced turtles and the study of turtles with 2 scientists. And he turned around and he looked at me and went, that's what data analytics is? Like, I love that. That's what we're trying to create.
Yeah. Kim, I saw you shaking your head. Were there some things that really resonated with you and what Lynn was sharing, and how does that relate to MAXX Potential?
Yeah, so with our simulator, and we also have a career lab, we had to really quickly, I mean, if you think about it, I got people with GEDs showing up asking for a job. I got people with PhDs showing up asking for a job. How do I choose? Like, that was the very first question in bringing this business to light. Like, how do I choose? We have UVA grads showing up for a $15 an hour IT apprenticeship because they're trying to change careers and get to a higher paying job. So we've developed a career lab program that I decided it's not who needs it most, who wants it most. Like, who is this the best fit for? Is this a good choice for you? And so over the course of the past 12 years, we've been perfecting that art of choosing, because we're incentivized to get it right, because when we get it wrong, there's a cost. Like, that's a hire, that's somebody who could, turn sour on us out in the market. That's a customer that could turn sour on us. So we've got real skin in the game. So figuring out how do we choose who this is good for. And now what we're trying to do is bring that earlier in people's careers so that we don't send, I love, in the previous session, that whole theme around the chasing your dreams. Giving somebody a job that isn't part of their dream or that's doing something they're not going to be happy with is not serving them well in the long run. So we figured that out and developed hands-on ways to show people what it's really like. Our environment, what I would say is different, is we're trying to create a safe place for people to fail and fail again and fail again, because I feel like that's what it takes to be successful in the industry is, one, the ability to teach yourself, because it is going to keep changing every day. So you have to love that. If you don't love that, it's probably not a good choice. If you don't like banging your head up against a wall to solve a problem, or it used to be when people would show up at MAXX, the first skill we had to teach them was how to Google, because the schools had told them that was cheating. And so we were like, no, like real professionals, I couldn't even tell you how many times I've Googled something today. And now that is AI, and it's the same way. So we're trying to bring AI solutions to schools as well. So like all of our apprentices have access, not just to ChatGPT, but we've got our own private portal where they can access Mistral and Llama and all of the AI models, because we want them learning how to compare the outputs and develop those mental models that they're going to need to be successful for the next decade.
And you talked about scaling it back, bringing it back earlier. What have you found that there's been a gap between like what learners want from their educational pathways and the outcome that technology employers want to see?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, correct me, I in the store, when I used to deliver our career labs, now our team does that, but, you know, in those early days when I was I used to call it the I want to be Serena or Venus Williams story, which is like, yeah, I might want to be Serena, but if I don't like getting sweaty or spending 48 hours a week on a court, I'm not going to be Serena. You can send me off to Serena's, you know, private boot camp for 8 weeks over the summer. I'm not going to leave playing like Serena, or pick anyone who's achieving elite levels of anything. If you don't like putting in the work, it's not a good choice for you. And so we want people to see that, and it's sorting that out. How many people were showing up because mom said if you go become a software engineer, you're going to make a lot of money, versus you're showing up because you really think computers are cool and you like geeking out over solving problems. Like, that's the person we can work with no matter where they come from. And then the rest is all about the access. So it's how do you I agree with Lynn, it's like 100%. How do you get that earlier and earlier in middle school, elementary school? I mean, yeah, I love what Danny's doing. I love it.
And speaking of, Danny, you're probably getting a lot of that. You have kids who are like, I want to be a gamer, and you kind of reference that. And then they get in, and then they see all the possibilities, and which is great. But then when you start talking about credentials and other like things that signal that, you know, learning is occurring, and now they're bumping into some challenges because credentials aren't easy, you know, but they're obviously worth it, and trying to, like, you know, help them to hold that tension. How do you manage all of that? How do you manage moving students from what they want to, you know, what is really out there that you know will help kind of change the trajectory for their families? And then how do you get them to maintain focus to move into the different credentials that it takes in order to continue to climb?
Absolutely. So the first thing is they have to see it to believe it, right? And when you think about education and you hear someone that says, I have a Ferrari, but if you don't really talk about how to get that Ferrari, then it's just a blinder come on. So for us, it's really, I can share my story, right? Being an actual African-American male that grew up in the south part of Dallas, which is essentially 90% African-American and under-resourced, incredibly under-resourced, and being able to go to school and saying, wow, you know, I like playing games, but I also understood that my parents said, go play sports because that's what's going to get you a college scholarship to save them capital. And so ultimately understanding, like, I could play games, but my mom's saying, go get on the actual basketball court. And so I did that. And so ultimately getting to college, getting a scholarship, I knew I made my mom proud. I knew I made my dad proud. But when I got to college, I recognized, like, man, I may not go to the Olympics, or I may not go to basketball. So what is the thing that I'm passionate about that I can fall on? And entrepreneurship was that. So ultimately starting a business in college around helping other gamers be able to showcase their skills, and understanding that you couldn't go to actually Monster or Indeed at the time and find someone with that of 7 years of tournament organizing. So if I wanted to host a Fortnite tournament on campus, I had to go and talk to my peers and teach them how to create graphics, teach them how to run brackets, teach them how to be able to do social media. And at that point, I recognized, like, wow, this is an opportunity to teach a lot of students across the world a skill set that they can learn in college. But not only college they can learn it, they can learn this in high school, and they can also learn this in middle school. And so understanding that we can create a company where we can expose these actual students to the opportunities that they can do right now and create portfolios was one of the biggest ways in which we started. So I get a chance to tell students, like, I'm you. I started it. You're a gamer. I didn't have a chance to play games because I was forced to do something else, but we're here today to give you an opportunity that we didn't have. And when we're able to share that message, that student is able to say, wow, okay, it's possible. You know, I probably heard it somewhere else that it isn't possible, but I see them, and they're the ones that are actively doing it. And so now we actually change that, say that same message to the educators, to the superintendents, to the admins, to say, this is what we see. Here's the impact of an actual student wanting to be a part of this program. By you implementing this program inside of the actual schools, it gives you a little bit more retention from those actual students. And here's how you do that. So when you think about what we work with a lot as a career and technical education, there is that of certifications that these students have to get in order to be able to pass. And also it drives capital back to the actual schools. So what we end up doing is saying, all right, Let's leverage gaming, running tournaments, entrepreneurship, event coordination. What do we have to do during those actual tournaments? We got to create graphics. What platforms do you use when you're creating graphics? Adobe Photoshop, Canva. Are you using those in the actual schools? Are those part of the certifications that the students have to do? If the students was exposed to something that they really like gaming and esports, and they had to do it as a project, would they do it? Would they like it? Would they retain the information? Would they go and pass that certification that's going to help your program succeed in your school and make you look good as an institution? If all of those boxes are checked, then why not incorporate this actually into your actual school? And for us being that intermediary, we are able to do that and ultimately help impact the actual students while at the same time adding value to the actual educators and the admins to help their jobs become that much more easier when it comes time to actually talking and communicating to the students that want to be successful, but they didn't quite have the actual people that knew the actual things that they wanted to be good at, but now they have somebody that can be able to speak to them in their language, and now we can teach educators how to do the exact same thing.
Danny, you might not have been surprised by this. This really caught me off guard. Our students that are doing game design, all those transferable skills that you were just talking about. We had a student in one of our labs at a business came in, and they were sitting behind a student who's writing a game, and they said, how do you know how to put voice? How did you know how to put that sound? They owned a real estate company. They hired the student. He's a 9th grader. He works there every day now. Like, he's getting paid for the job because the real estate company wanted the skills inside of that. So I think we've got to do a better job of helping our, not just our students, but our publics to understand when students come out from game design, they have a lot of transferable skills.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to weigh in one thing because I think it's important. What gets measured is what gets done. And I feel like we really need to be revisiting the incentives that we've got in place right now, because I don't think that, the reason I want to push it further up the chain, because entrepreneurs know you want to fail fast. Like, you want to kill your dumb idea as fast as you can so you can get a better one and a better one. And the faster you can kill those dumb ideas, sooner you get to the good one. There was a huge startup. I was trying to build a product before starting MAXX. I mean, big time. I call that my PhD in entrepreneurship because I spent $30,000 on a product that was never going to pay my bills. But I learned so much through that, and I wish I would have learned it faster. And I feel like by moving those, like, exposure, for me, I don't feel bad if I don't give somebody a job, because especially, and if we can do that in high school, you know, when they come to our work simulator, they're working for a company that is based on a real company, but it's not like a work-based project we're giving them. It's like, no, you're showing up for work, you get a manager, you have daily stand-ups with your project team, you can be on a cybersecurity team, you can be on a dev team, so they can try out all the different aspects of IT to see if it works for them. But if that's not on their dime, if that's done early enough, if they don't like it, well, by golly, we save somebody from sending them down a cert path to go spend, 6 months of their lives trying to get a Security Plus certification. When you look at the numbers, when we measure number of getting a certification as success, we're certifying a lot of people who still aren't getting hired. And that's what's happening. And MAXX is, we're an intermediary in between, but we wish we would get further upstream so that we can kind of get people on their path where they're going to be happy, because you send them to Danny, they might light up, and then that's going to be a better path for them. And it could be neither path, but then it's like, if we say no, you're either going to get really mad at us and go try to prove us wrong, in which case you're going to do great, or you're going to say, oh, MAXX didn't let me in, I'm going to go do something else, and then maybe you're going to become a master chef, or something else. Yeah. Whatever is your passion, your dream.
Yeah, there are so many different ways we can take this conversation. Unfortunately, time is never on our side. No. You all are sharing really great information. I love how organic the conversation is, and there are things that we need to talk about in terms of like collaborations and strategy and lots of other aspects. of what it takes in order for these new tech pathways to truly exist, and the role that intermediaries continue to play, and how that role is getting bigger and more critical every single day. But as we kind of near the end of our time together, I do want to truly address our historically marginalized communities. Danny, you started to address it when you were talking about when you're like, I am you. These were kind of what I did, but these are the opportunities that you now have. So how can we ensure that learners from historically marginalized communities, which often are black and brown kids, so how do we ensure that they have equitable access to these new technologies? Because Lord knows we don't need one more barrier. Like, Goldie was talking about when she was naming the things that were happening back in the 1600s, it's 2024. So we still got things that we're fighting today. And so, now we have these new technologies, these new access to different things around data, and these new languages of all the different literacies that are existing that our black and brown kids will have to continue to catch up to due to inequitable resources. So how can we ensure that all students have access to these really high-level opportunities?
Absolutely, and I'll do this really quickly. There's a stat out there. There's 84% of African Americans and minorities that play games. Only 4% of them will actively work in the esports and gaming industry, me being one of them. Mm-hmm. At this point, I have to wake up every single day with that thought process. How do I turn from 4% to 5% to 6%? And when I think about sports, when you think about basketball or football, you have to be 7 foot, you have to weigh it, you have to be able to bench press 350 pounds. When I think about gaming and esports, it's leveled. It's a level. You can look like X. You can be Caucasian. You can be Indian. You can speak a different language. You can come from a different geographic location. And it makes it equitable from that point. But what a lot of people don't talk about is that in order to be good at gaming, you have to have the best equipment, right? So therefore now, if you don't have the best PC in your actual area, then now you're not going to be as successful in the esports and gaming realm because you don't have a HyperX, you don't have a processor i9 or Ryzen 3 30,000 series GPU. And so in this instance, building actual spaces, my mom always says, software, right? But you can build software, but if you don't impact the students from a physical perspective, they got to be able to touch and feel. So being able to bring in a building where students can come in and don't have those resources and showcasing them like, here's what an awesome PC looks like. And not only what it looks like, here's how you can develop the skill sets. And from an entrepreneurial perspective, because we live in a gig economy and a content creation economy, here's how you can develop those skill sets. And one day you can purchase your actual PC. You can purchase those headsets. And this is how you get better by showcasing your portfolio so you can get better jobs. So just essentially being able to bring our resources together to give access to students that look like me every single day because they may not have it. So therefore, gaming and esports, while it could be, a level playing field, by not having the money and the resources, then ultimately we're going to get left again behind, and I refuse to let that happen.
We're passing a donation plate after, so if anyone would like to give. We'll end here with this one. One, I just love how our definition of IT has evolved over the year. It is so broad now, including gaming and so many other new technologies, that I think that's really important to continue to pay attention to. And Lynn, I'll start with you, and then I'll go down the line. But I want to think about what's next. So this is for our last closing question. As we think about this broad umbrella of blended learning around these new technologies, specifically in the IT field, how would blended learning get bigger and better? And then how can we scale the programs that you do and then others? How can we build this network around that so that it is more uniform across the nation?
I'm going to try to answer that, but I really want to tag on to Danny. Yeah. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Because you really got me thinking about access. And I think it's number one for students is an invitation. When we walk into a school and we recognize somebody who's lost, and to say, have you ever thought about cybersecurity? It's invitation. Yes. Yeah. And so it's personal invitations. Like, you recognize me, you saw me, you think that I can do that. So I think it's that. I think it's networks. and that ties to what you're asking now. One of the biggest goals that we have is that every student that comes into our lab is networked. They collaborate with each other. We collaborate across districts, but they also see people like them. We intentionally have women of color to talk to people like, you know, we have a young lady in Elizabeth City who's gone through every cybersecurity unit that we have, and she's like, I want somebody who looks like me. Like, I want to talk about it. So we have 3 people who jumped to the, like, give her to me. I will mentor her. I can show her a way of doing this. So I think it's a lot about networks. Like, how do we intentionally plug them one by one with each person in the field that can take them to the next level and help them navigate?
That invitation got me, Lynn. That's a whole message.
That's all right. I'm going to build on both. I try to stay in my lane. So where can I impact this problem? I agree 100% with Danny. Like, the hardware, that is real, and we saw that pronounced when it comes to the learning loss at the start of COVID. So we went out, you know, my team, what can we do? And it was, how do we get hardware? How do we get network? How do we get high speed, you know, to areas in our neighborhood? I would also say, I come from Oxon Hill, Maryland, so I'm not black or brown, but I did grow up, I got a lot of friends. I'm just gonna say. Awesome. The 2 areas where I feel like I can impact that's similar is, so one, the internships. The reason we built the simulator is because internships, like where I came from, I didn't have access to people who knew people who were hanging out with people who could get me a job. Like, I never had those types of role models either. So I agree 100% with Lynn that access is a thing. And so with the simulator, we're able to provide equitable access at scale to a manager, a real job, real work, you know, and that is scalable. It's a scalable platform that we can offer. So that's one piece, is internships. The other is on the AI side. And I will say this for everybody here in terms of upskilling and keeping your own skills. If you are just starting to dabble around with ChatGPT, there is a difference between 3.5 and 4 turbo. And that is going to create another gap as these things pick up, because all of these platforms are adding this $20 a month, $20 a month, $20 a month to get the real version. And the output between the paid and the free is different. And so that would hold certain people back, whoever has it. So what we have a portal that's, you know, available for our apprentices. Every apprentice has MAXX. As I said, at MAXX, as I said earlier, has access to all the models. Our bill for giving access to everyone in our company, rather than paying $20 per head, by hitting the API behind the scenes, we're spending like less than $100 or $200 to give everybody access to the faster models. So that's where I feel like I can help.
No, I appreciate you servicing that inequity.
Inequity is real.
All right. And Danny, we'll let you close it out.
Awesome. I believe it's storytelling through content creation. Students need to be able to understand that there are several platforms out there for them to share their story. And one of the biggest focal points for us is not only just sharing our company story, but sharing the students that have come through our company story. And for one example, we have an individual by the name of Ryan Cogner. He goes by Dave Fry. This individual came to us with the perspective of playing games, wanted to be one of the best 2K players in the world, but ultimately there was no league for him to play. But when NBA made an announcement that they created an actual NBA 2K league in partnership with Take-Two Interactive, he ended up trying out and became an actual one of the best NBA 2K players the world has ever seen, amassing over $2 million in actually winnings. But most importantly, he retired at the age of 24 and then became one of the coaches of the NBA teams that has an esports team that's attached to it. Now, for us as a storyteller, we get to be able to talk to the student and say, hey, you might not become the best professional gamer. Actually, becoming a professional gamer is very, very slim. It's harder to become a professional gamer than an actual NBA athlete. But what you've done now is you've shown that you can actually go and be a coach. You showed that you can be a therapist. You can be other actual careers within the actual gaming industry, and sharing that story and being able to allow Dave Fry, calling them up, say, you made $2 million, but I need you to get over to this school right now and talk to these students and let them know firsthand that these are the things that they can do to be able to support the actual industry as a whole. The same industry that you're passionate about, these individuals are passionate about as well. And creating that actual content around that story impacts students.
Danny, Kim, Lynn, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. Give this round of applause.